Hello! Welcome to Zaprojektuj swoje życie or Design Your Life, a podcast and video channel about making tough decisions and creating a life design. We are usually recording this in Polish, however, sometimes we have very interesting guests. Today's guest actually flew in from Slovakia on a small Cessna airplane. We had some adventures on the airport with it. He is going to tell us about it. And we're going to record it mostly in English, but I was actually thinking maybe we should record it in Slovak, Pavol.
To by bolo výborné.
Bylo by výborné, ne? Ahojte. No, Pavol Varga, welcome.
Thank you.
If you're watching this for the first time, remember to click subscribe button. If you're watching it more often, make sure you give us a good like. Smash that like button for us, please. Pavol, welcome to Warsaw. Thank you.
Very much.
How long was your flight to Warsaw?
It was just shy of 4 hours.
4 hours. You said it's going to be 3:20, yes?
Yes, there was some event happening on the way.
Weather event.
Luckily ended up happily, yes.
Okay.
There was, I was planning my route, and kind of in the middle of it I got a call from a dispatcher saying there's a bad weather on the way, and I can't fly in bad weather because I'm a visual flyer. So I need to do a bit of turnaround. So I saw more of a beautiful Poland than I was planning initially.
Okay. Pavol is an entrepreneur opening a IT company in Austria. However, he worked for how many years in Dell?
15
years in Dell, beforehand in IBM, done quite an interesting career in IT, and he's going to tell us more about it. But a question that I ask most of my guests here, do you remember first time we met?
I do.
Can you tell what you remember?
Do I tell the public story or the real story?
You can tell whichever story you like.
So we met, must have been 2003.
2002. Or 2003 maybe, yeah.
In summer. It was very hot, just like these days. And I was fairly recent hire into Dell. I was a team leader, so first level manager. And you came in from Switzerland.
Yeah.
Initially as a consultant for business process improvement, as you call it at that time, basically productivity and making the business better. And you were actually sitting back to back in like a next cubicle to me, if you remember.
Yes.
It was just opposite the entrance into the big room. So I was overhearing some of your conf calls, of course discreetly all the time, but sometimes you just can't prevent it.
Open space has that, yeah?
Yes, that's some of the benefits of the open space. You share information even if you don't want to. And I got really interested in what you were doing. And then a couple of months later, I actually moved permanently to Bratislava because you took over a director role. And then the relationship started from there.
Yes. And the story that you're thinking, the official one, I actually recorded this in a podcast number 23.
All right, so it's authorized.
It's authorized,
Good.
yes. When I was talking that I'm searching for the GM, yes?
Yes.
Which the verb was a bit of an issue.
Which, in case you didn't properly translate it, in Slovak it means, dear viewers, I'm having a violent sexual relationship with that male person.
Pavol, you've recently left the corporate world.
I did.
After 15 years. There was a decision that we talked about quite a lot. I would love you to describe the process of doing it. First of all, what are you doing now would be a good explanation, but also how you came to the decision.
All right, so I actually left Dell after 15 years and a couple of weeks in the spring of 2018. After great 15 years, we have just fond memories of that company.
You were running a region of several countries when you were leaving.
I was. At the end, I was running a cluster of 10 countries in Central Eastern Europe. It was called Northeast Europe, and it was a great experience. So what led to it? Many things as usual, but if I want to distill it into something, and actually that's probably I'm going to be quoting a lot of ideas that you kind of planted into me over the years. This is not like an advertisement for Meg's life coaching, but may sound like it. That was one of the things you, by the way, remember when I was deciding about the MBA, which one to choose from?
Yes, we went walking in a cemetery in Bratislava.
Yes,
it was a long walk.
On a nice summer day, and I was like choosing between let's call it a low-cost option and not so low-cost option, but high-impact option. And you told me that you gave me a question which luckily I knew answer to. And the question was, what's the most irrecoverable asset of my life? Of course, the answer was time. And years later, that stuck. And actually, when I look back, it formed a lot of my decisions ever since. And that was one of them, because I actually realized that there's a limited time that I may spend on this earth, and especially the time when I'm productive, when I can create and build stuff. And there were some milestones that I would like to hit. Among them was actually building up a business from scratch, of which at least part I could own. And I was thinking about it for quite a few years. And then I realized that was actually end of 2017 that the time has come. I was in my early 40s. I still am, of course, always will be. And I decided it was time to move. So with big regret of leaving behind something that I liked a lot and people I loved working with, but moving forward to something that I knew that if I wouldn't try, then I would have those regrets at the later point in time when the time would be spent and I wouldn't be able to.
There was a long process for you, yes? It took you several years to
Yes.
prepare. You had several options to choose from because you were preparing so long that there were people actually waiting for you to do the business with them, yes?
True. At the end, I had 3 options to choose from, which is a luxury, of course. Doesn't make life easier, though. And I chose one, which I love. I'm probably going to get into that, but it's very different from what I was used to, even though it's the same industry. And it's beautiful. What I do, actually, we're building up a IT service provider in Austria. It's a small startup. We actually recently acquired another small company, so we got a bit bigger.
An Austrian company?
Yes, a local Austrian company. But I'm one of the 4 co-founders, and the other 3 guys are very experienced entrepreneurs coming out of Slovakia. I know them for a few years, and they've been very successfully branching out and growing their businesses in Czech Republic, which is kind of the logical step nearby. They've been doing business in Germany in the meantime and UK. And Austria, being a very close country, was kind of the very logical choice. And since of the years I spent with Dell, almost half, I was actually country manager in Austria. I dare say I have some experience with the country and some network there. So we got together. So it is a startup, but it's a startup that there's a lot of help of course, capital, but probably even more importantly, of experience and ideas of my very experienced colleagues who've been in the business building up companies for 25 years.
So you made a decision to exit corporate world because you had unfulfilled dream of creating a company, yes?
You can put it this way.
That's what you said?
Yes.
Okay. What are you aiming for in life?
That's a short question that demands
a long answer.
So I'll give you a few maybe answers like in like a space of time.
Okay.
So maybe a few years ago, I would split this into like what's my professional life, what's my personal life, what's my the family life. But now, I'm not saying it's because I've made the choice of changing my career, but I realize there's only one life. So what am I aiming for in life is to build stuff, to make it better, whatever I do. So,
and it doesn't matter what kind of part of life is it, professional, private, and so on, yes?
There's a friend I know very well, and he recently said that he's also achieved some success in life, and he said he wants to spend whatever time he left to make the world a better place. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
I want to build something that I can look back at some point and saying, hey, this is a path. I tread it, and there's some footprints which are not disappearing. But whatever I do, I want to be able to look at it with pride at some point.
You made some important decisions in your life. You moved to Ireland, you moved back, you went for MBA, you changed your career. So what was the main driver in you designing your life? Was it design, or was it opportunity hunting, or what?
Well, I think the only right answer is it's a combination.
Okay.
So of course there's some how is it said in English? there's some nature and some nurture. So I inherited some genes, and I was brought up a certain way, but I was also formed by the environment, by the society I grew up with, by the system we both grew up with. And then luckily the system changed, which gave us a lot of opportunities. And I dare say, the cocky answer would be, my success rate in using opportunities may be better than the average. But I think also probably the more honest answer is I also maybe got more opportunities in life than the average.
Being in the right place in the right time?
Certainly.
You moved back you went
but
to
also,
Ireland, yes?
But also, I'd also dare say that I sometimes worked to get the opportunities.
For example?
That I could take advantage of. So for example, if I wanted to move on professionally, when I knew what would be the next step, I hung out with the right people, not just to kind of do some lobbying, but more of to get the experience of if they are in the job that I want to be in, what is it like, what do they need to know, what do they need to deliver, so I know if it's for me, and if I choose it is for me, then I can prepare, and when the opportunity presents itself, then I'm the right match.
But I remember when you were coming back from INSEAD, you decided to go away from career in sales and go to HR, which is not an obvious choice. Why did you do that?
It's not an obvious choice, but interestingly enough, it's not an obvious choice for non-MBAs. Every MBA I spoke to, like every single one was like, yeah, it makes absolute sense.
In what way?
Because the MBA that I went to was general management. I wanted to be a general manager, and in my world, a general manager is somebody who answers for the whole business. So like has the bottom line responsibility. That's what I wanted to have, and kind of the how do you call it? Like the next level of it is owning a business, but being
which
a general
you're doing
manager,
right now.
Yes, that's what it is, and I grew up in sales. I was doing sales and sales management of increasing levels at Dell and before Dell at IBM, and I was lucky enough to observe people who were put into general management positions, growing up in one function, I would call it. Like there would be a sales guy.
Growing up without branching, yes?
Exactly, and they had this mindset, like a sales guy would drive top line, for example, right? A marketing guy would drive. We both have some opinions of marketing, so like budget spend and some funny metrics to chase, which don't really trickle to bottom line. A finance person would maybe look at costs all the time, and I was like, well, all of those you need to have, but you shouldn't like overexpose yourself to one of those. And I knew I was a sales guy, and that towards the end of the MBA course, we actually got some career advisory sessions, which was great. And I remember. One of the counselors, when I was presented with an option of going back into a sales and a more senior level in different country and more complex business, more interesting. And she said to me, hey, so you go there after MBA, and then I'll look at your CV 10 years from now, and I'll see sales, MBA, and sales. So I'll ask the question, what was the sense of the MBA? And that's when it kind of clicked with me. And then I decided I need to get as far as possible from sales to kind of really to a different world.
And HR was that?
Yes, in my world, HR was that. It was as far as possible.
But you went to running HR for over 2,000 people organization, multilingual, multicultural, outsource center for Dell, yeah?
That
with a huge recruiting needs because it was just constantly growing.
Which was kind of a nice, kind of smoother transition than it sounds, because I moved into recruitment as a recruitment manager.
Oh, you started as a recruitment manager.
And in a way, that's kind of similar to sales, because you're actually selling the value proposition of the company as an employer.
Okay. How big was your recruitment team then?
At that time, we had about a dozen.
Okay. So it's a big recruitment team.
Well, it grew afterwards even.
Okay.
We actually split it out, so we had like what you call screeners, like the first contact persons who would be juniors, and then they would move on into like recruitment consultants.
Okay.
And so that was kind of, I could get my mind around it because you had some metrics to drive. You knew what's your pipelines, what pipelines you need. And then you had competition of the other good companies that were actually building up their presence in Bratislava and then widely in Slovakia. And then a situation happened that the HR director, which was the kind of my dotted line superior, because my solid line was in the recruitment wing, left the company. And I was asked to, first of all, to step in and to kind of do
interim
2 jobs, which sometimes happens. And then I'm not sure what I did, but probably I didn't screw up completely, because then they asked me if I wanted to do the job. And I remember I gave a very non-MBA answer. I said, hey, with all my self-respect, I've been on this job like in HR for like 6 months. I know so much about it, and there's a lot I have to learn. So they say, what do you think you can get there?
So what did this sidetrack of your career in a way, from growing your power and base and team size in sales, taught you?
The sidestep from my previous progression. Well,
because the next step was general management for you, yes?
Yes. Well, that was one of the best learnings that you can have. That you expect something and you get that, and you don't expect other things, and you get even more of that. So
in what way?
Being in HR, I actually saw what you would call like a dark side of management. So I was actually called in to kind of tidy up stuff when the manager was not doing a good job. So that the team was not performing because he or she had like favorites, or was not objective, or didn't listen to people. And you could really see like teams crumbling and great people leaving the company because of bad management. And
so there's this saying that people will join great companies and leave bad managers. Yeah?
I think it's a simplification.
Yeah.
But if you have a bad manager, I can predict pretty reliably that you're going to have some attrition that you don't need to have. So that's one. And second, on the hiring side, I finally understood how much effort it takes to actually find good people. And then back to those, let's call it not good managers or not properly educated managers who are then burning people. So that actually I understood how expensive it is for a company to have a bad manager who actually burns through people and loses people away from the company.
So it gave you perspective on the job.
So actually, they make the recruitment even more busy. And you have a learning curve like in everything. So it takes time and money to actually find the people, to sort through them, and to hire them until they're productive as the ones who left. It takes, we're talking months, maybe like over a year. That's a lot of money, even as speedy.
So how did your career work out? Because you started as a tech support agent in Ireland in a call center, ended up as a regional director managing GMs of 10 countries. How do you feel it worked out for you?
Well, my very first job actually was a journalist.
You were a journalist?
Yes. I was actually a business journalist.
In Slovakia?
Yes. I started in my 4th year at university. So I was a journalist of a startup. It was my first startup experience as an employee. Very interesting, by the way. Of a news agency, which still exists. And it was actually the first privately owned news agency not funded or sponsored by the government in former Eastern Europe. It's very interesting. So I actually learned maybe to think and ask the right questions and kind of get behind them. And maybe even, certainly, I learned how to better write and concisely write. That was my first job.
Okay.
And then I actually knew, and that was the setup that I did put myself into. I saw much older guys, much more experienced guys being journalists who were basically sitting next to me at some news conferences. And I was like, hey, I'm not going to do this job in like 20 years' time. So I wanted to change, and IT proved to be a great lever.
Well,
so I actually decided for
years
IT.
in IT, yeah? And you're still in IT?
I am, actually. That's 20 years, that's true. 20 years. And how did it work out? Well, it's still hopefully work in progress. So far, it's been very interesting, and as probably every other guest will tell you, I would never think I would end up in a place, as I am today.
But the answers
20 years
vary
back.
Depending on our guests.
So I think the answer will be, I'm not done yet.
Okay. Pavol, so your career moved on, you went to startups. What do you focus on now?
At the moment, I focus on building my business
Mm-hmm.
and spending as much time with my family as I can. I have 2 sons who still need me a lot. One is 14, the other
And
is 10.
building a startup helps in it?
It does.
It does in what way?
It does. Actually, that was one of the reasons that
You
I wanted to
work
try.
less or you work more?
I probably spend less hours working. I certainly spend less hours traveling, which is
Okay.
a saving in itself. And I can actually invest that into work. I still commute, but I can choose much better what to work on.
And the intensity of work is less or more now for you?
It's actually more intense, but less extensive, if you like. So I spend
Can
less
you explain that?
hours,
Okay.
less hours working.
Okay.
But I get to choose much more often when and where I'm working.
And what on?
And what I'm working on.
Okay.
That's right. On the other hand, we have customers, so you're not completely independent. You're not like on an isolated island.
Mm-hmm.
So my customers still, in a way, determine what I do business-wise, but it's much more kind of self-determined what I work on. And on the family side, my boys. They watch me very closely, at Dell, and Dell still is the best brand.
At home?
Of course, whatever T-shirt has Dell on it is like the best T-shirt.
Okay.
There's a certain fruit product competing with it, but it's still Dell is holding on strong. But I also view as they actually watch me what I'm doing now, and as I made the change, and they see there's several options to build your career if you're in business, and I think they're benefiting from that.
Okay. You described it several times to me, but maybe we'd like, how did your everyday and your focus and your stress level change? Because you had a shock in the first week or two of work, yeah?
Of course.
I remember. Can you describe it? And you also had very interesting parting conversations when leaving the office on the last day, yes? Can you, because it took you 2 years to make the decision. It was a very thought out process and you prepared for it. But once you made it, what surprised you in the process of making that decision?
There's an episode. I spoke to a friend who's an entrepreneur for ever since he started his productive life, and I had some time, and I said to him, hey, you're building this new business, so give me something to work on, and I'll help you. And he, being like a years-long entrepreneur, he said, hey, find yourself something to do and do it.
Okay.
And that was to me like really shocking, kind of response to my question. That's the world I've been living with ever since. So yes, I left the corporation, and one of the comments that you're mentioning was when I was leaving, one of good colleagues told me, hey, man, you are doing something that all of us are dreaming about. And that was like,
and I'm afraid to do it probably. Yeah?
Well, that's where the sentence ended, right? Maybe, when you dream about something for long enough, then you may turn it into reality. But she was not there yet, and I was. And it was a shock. Maybe it's not the right word, but more of a changing into a different dimension. One of the reasons I wanted to try it, I was like, hey, I'm living in this 3-dimensional world, and I'm pretty sure there's a 4th dimension that I'm not experiencing, and I would like to kind of, call it Matrix, whatever, get into that. And I've been very much in that. So basically, I came into a small office that I rented.
Empty office.
That was like
no people.
Internet connection was in it, right? And I was alone.
There was no internet connection the first day?
There was,
okay.
Because I ordered it. But, and I had I had the name of the company. It was actually being set up. And I got to choose everything, what the name, the domain, the branding will be. But more importantly, who are the customers we're going to go after, and
employees you're going to hire.
And employees, and what are the products we want to choose to go after. So that was very different, and to the stress or maybe the anxiety levels, I actually realized it has ups and downs. So
you told a story when you call customers and you're no longer representing big brand name, the conversation goes different, yeah?
Well, of course, it is different because you realize we both work for big companies, and the name for good and bad actually, it tells a story before you open your mouth, right? So you come in a jersey with the logo, and they know what you most likely going to tell them, right? And here it's very different because you are a person, and many of my customers know me from my previous times, so they know maybe some personal qualities, but they actually need to take time. I need to get them to take time to actually understand what we're doing now. So that's a very, very different.
And is it easier or harder to have those meetings and convert them to sales?
I wouldn't say it's easier or harder. I would say it takes more time than I thought, and actually than I expected. And I was kind of looking into it as to why is that. And I realized that if you're in a big business, then you have a lot of projects, like concurrent veins. So always something is like in like a final stage, or something is like just being opened. Whereas if you're just building up this funnel like from the bottom, you start many things at once, and they kind of mature, maybe in a different pace. But it's not like it's not like something like turns into a sale tomorrow and something in like a year. So actually, the one of the surprising findings was that I actually expected to have a faster life than I have at the moment. On the other hand, that's good for me as a person, because I get to, like I said, design a lot of what I do and how and when I choose to do.
So can you design
things.
your typical day?
I can design it, but it's difficult to say if there is a typical day. There's very little stereotype. Okay. Sometimes when there's a project we need to close, then I get up like very early, and I need to get to the office because there's some documents I need to sign or scan or e-sign, whatever. And then there's like, for a couple of hours there's nothing to do until I have another appointment. And then other days when there's like, things, we kind of planted the seeds, I need to kind of wait for them to grow. Then you actually need to, and that's a tough one for me. You need to actually sit down and actually, think your way into doing something, so it turns into a seed planted at a later stage. So
why is it hard?
Because that's not something that I was used to in my previous experience. I almost feel like a lot of your day was kind of designed for you by the time you woke up, whereas now it's different. And for some people, I can imagine it's scary. And that's something, however, that I really wanted to try.
Okay, what gives you most energy or satisfaction in life?
Energy, I actually take from, I'm an introvert, so I refill my batteries when I'm alone, when I can think, I can process stuff. Where, by the way, my commute helps a lot. I can listen to books or generally think. So this is where I recharge, and where I like to spend it is things that it kind of sounds maybe profound, but I like to invest my time, not to spend it.
How do you invest your time?
I do things that are like more like projects than just like gigs, for example.
Okay.
When I build things and it's in my own pace, then I can actually decide what to spend the next day or two on, so that I may see the result in not like in the next couple of weeks or a couple of months, but maybe in a year. That's both on the hobby side, which we'll get into, but also on the professional side or on the family side.
Can you describe the best decision you made in your life?
I don't think I can describe a decision, but I can describe a pattern of decision, and I can describe a good one and a bad one. And I actually learned it the hard way. So I realized that every time in my life, when I chose not the narrowest, the most challenging path, but kind of the even like this, second toughest, like the easier path, I actually regretted it at later stage. It started at school.
Regret things we didn't do more than the things we did, yeah?
Yes, but this is a bit different. This is like if you had an opportunity to invest like 100% of your capital, mental capital or your talent, or 90% have some slack. Every time I chose a slack, I regretted it.
Okay.
So there's a few decisions that I made.
An example?
I went, I had the military service. I was at, that.
You were a paratrooper, if you remember correctly.
Yes, that kind of tells you how old I am, because for many years now there's no conscript service in Slovakia. And there was an option to go for the easy way to spend a year. The point was at that time I need to, if you're not freed from the service, you need to kind of spend a year so you can go and apply for jobs. And there would be like a tough way, to when you're there already. And that was kind of coming back to this, spend your time properly. So I chose the tough one. So yes, it was I think it's in the expert language, it's called reconnaissance. So we did some funny stuff with some jumping and some, painting your faces in mud and sleeping in rough
terrain.
And that was, at the end of the same year, right, as anybody else would spend, sitting at the table and typing away on the computer. But I got a lot out of it, mentally and physically, that actually I'm benefiting from even now. So that was like a good choice. And the bad choice, I remember once that was at my high school, gymnasium as it's called in Slovakia, and there was an option to, it was like an optional course on IT, and I chose the second, there was like three options. I chose the middle one because I was like, hey, I thought the guys for the top one need to really study hard, and there was some coding. That wouldn't mean I would be coding, but I would understand some concept more than I would now. So I didn't go with the best troop, and the best guys actually went to the tough one, and from like the second lesson afterwards, I was regretting it. And at that time I said to myself,
couldn't switch?
No, at that time it was not that easy. So I said, no, I need to go to take the rough part.
Is there anything you could stop doing that would improve your mood or cause your development now?
I think I could focus better. I still sometimes
so you
find
are
it hard
unfocused
to concentrate. Yes.
Because of social media or?
Generally procrastination. If you really want to procrastinate, you find a way. It can be social media. It can be
when you're your own
looking
boss.
out
That's
of the window.
even harder, probably. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So how do you manage the procrastination?
Well, the good old-fashioned to-do lists.
Okay, and they work for you?
They work partially, but coming back to where I take my energy. So I kind of need to retreat a bit, and I need to do sports. If I don't do sports, I'm a runner, like mid-distance. I do some workouts, but like no weights, just with the body weight. And I actually. That's been for years. That's one of the benefits of my military service. Actually,
running.
I started running there at the ripe age of 23, and I never stopped. And I actually realized if I neglect it for a couple of days, my mental capability really goes down. And that's both for business, also in the family. I'm not concentrated. I'm not really there as I could be. So I need to actually check on that. And if I actually give the body what it needs, then the mind has a space to expand.
Great. I wanted to come back to those to-do lists and procrastinations as an entrepreneur, because similar to you, I come to an empty office once in a while and I don't have to do anything. Sure. I should, but I don't have to. And it's a huge challenge for me. How do you deal with that?
So the way that works for me is when I put my priorities for the day, or I actually try to do it for a week, and then kind of split it on days. I actually call it a to-do list, but it's not really. It's more like a list of objectives for a year. And okay. I made a commitment to myself. I don't call it like New Year's resolutions. I actually call it like what I'm gonna do this year. Like I'm gonna do this run.
But you check it every day when you set up your tasks?
I try to review that one every week. I don't get to it every week, but like I actually reserve some time on Sunday evening to kind of look back at the week and look at, hey, what is it that I actually want to achieve this year?
How does the process of looking back, is it in your head, or are you using paper?
I have an Evernote for that.
You're using Evernote
yes, I do.
as an app?
Yes. And
for tasks and scheduling and so on?
No, I actually do for basically it's a document management for me. So I have some documents that I use on regular basis scanned in there.
Okay.
And some notes. And the beauty is, wherever you go and you just have your phone with you and something like occurs to you, just tap it in, and then it's on all your devices. So that one is this is like the 4th year I've been doing that. I call it like a to-do. I have a to-do list for 2019, and I try to review it on a regular basis. And there's some business objectives. There's something I want to do with the family, like some stuff we want to do together, or some stuff I want to provide to them so they have some experience. There's some sport objectives. There's some hobby objectives.
Hobby is flying, yes?
One of them, yes.
Okay.
But, aircraft generally, like whatever that flies and has to have wings, so no propeller.
And you can jump out of it.
No rotating wings. You can jump out of it, that's even better. So I do that. And back to this, how do I make myself stop procrastinating? Is when I actually said to myself, first of all, it has to be the first thing in the morning. That's actually what I realized in the last about a year. I heard it somewhere. It's called pre-input thinking. So literally, I get up fairly early. My family is asleep, and it's usually quiet. And it's like I feel like the whole day is there for me. Like whatever, I haven't done anything wrong on that day yet because it's just early in the morning. And I just sit down and have my fresh mind, and I kind of put down a few points I want to do today. And then I do the chores, breakfast, and then I go when I do writing, I do it in the morning. And then I actually commit to myself, I'm not going to do anything that even smells like procrastination until I've done those
things that you wrote
priorities
down in the morning, yes?
And the logic that I have is, if a disaster happens by 11 a.m. or like 2 p.m., whatever, right? And I've done the three things, then it's actually not such a bad day because the important things I did.
So you do have a typical day. You just said you don't, but by noon you have accomplished
there's some routines. Well, not all of them, because sometimes it's very important, but you need to wait for input of somebody else, right?
Okay.
So that it doesn't really mean that I do all 3 or 4, whatever. I try not to do more than 5 is too much already. If it's really important, it's typically 3 to 4 for me. And sometimes you need some inputs from somebody. So and sometimes you actually don't do it because there's a reason. Mostly subjective, unfortunately. So I just shift it to next day, and I make note, like I make a remark in the system that, hey, this is like you're looking second time at this thing. So you better do it or review if it's important or not.
Okay, and Evernote helps you with focusing on that.
That's what I do actually. I combine it with paper. So this planning in the morning, I actually do it.
But these are tasks more than
yes.
projects. Projects
yes.
are in Evernote,
yes,
and tasks
exactly.
are on paper.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did I understand the
yes.
process correctly?
And on the Evernote, this yearly thing, I do like a big review every quarter. So I before the calendar quarter is over, I actually really sit down and look at, hey, so I want to do, I wanted to paint something around the house, and it's like October, so it's time to do it.
It is said that people who surround us have huge influence on us, and the circle we move around, it does it. So who's your power 5, the 5 people closest to you, influencing you most?
It's the people that have shaped me into what I am. Part of them were willingly chosen, and part of them just happened to be, which makes me a very lucky person.
Is the same people or it changed?
It's been changing throughout my adult or teenage and adult life. At the moment, of course, for 18 years now, it's my wife. She really is. I hope she's watching it. Love you, darling. She really is having a big influence on me, and in a good way.
Okay.
So a lot of things that I am and that I do is because she's helping me do them, and she's advancing my thinking in that. So that's a very important person, and hope it's going to continue for many more years. It's my sons, it's my kids who are challenging me in 1,000 ways every day.
Okay.
And
professionally,
this is a very a stable element in my life.
Okay.
Professionally and even socially, there's one thing that I think which really makes me feel that I was lucky was in my formative years when I was a teenager. I was very lucky to get into a class at the high school of guys who were smart, hardworking, like hard studying, really good grades, doing sports, and not like heavy drinkers or smokers or anything, right? So I was in the group that if you wanted to fit in, you had to work hard. And I know not all people are like that. Sometimes I know people or young kids of my acquaintances who are actually in bad company. So they actually kind of pull back on the effort just
That's
to
the idea of
fit in.
those circles. If they're better, they
Yes.
make you better, yes.
And I was very lucky. That one I didn't choose, but we actually stayed friends ever since. We're still in connection. We meet almost on a regular basis, and everyone moved in a different way. But I'm trying to say that was a very formative time of my life, and really I understood what it means to put yourself in a good company, and I tried to do that ever since. So I think I had some success in that.
Okay, you have a very interesting hobby. You want to tell us more about it?
Yes. So that's one of the childhood dreams.
It got you here, yes.
That I was following. So ever since I remember, like being a small boy, I wanted to be a pilot. At that time, of course, I wanted to be a supersonic MiG pilot and and fly at Mach 2. That didn't happen, but actually fulfilled that childhood dream last year when I actually passed my private pilot license. So I'm actually a private pilot. I'm allowed and I'm skilled enough to fly an aircraft, which happened today.
You flew in from Bratislava.
I
yes?
did. I flew in from Slovakia on a small Cessna plane. And it was a lot of fun.
Okay.
And it is...
and you want to take the hobby further and start flying jets, or...?
No, I don't.
No?
There is... there are some trains who are gone
Okay.
from your railroad station, and that's one of them. But I actually realized that, what I was really dreaming about was actually flying. The beautiful activity of flying in itself.
And a hobby gives you that.
Which I think is one of the most beautiful things a human being can do. For like millions of years we were dreaming about flying, and now we can do it, and I do it. So yes, this is my first international trip. It was much more interesting than we planned for. But it ended well. We landed and we're having fun.
We just can't take off.
Yes, there is.
There's a flight ban because the president of US was supposed to fly in for 3 days. Nobody can fly out of Warsaw.
So here's one of the life's learnings that I sometimes ignore and I keep smashed in the face every time, which is you are responsible for whatever you do and pretty much everything that happens to you.
So lack of preparation leads to...
Yeah, failing to prepare means preparing to fail. So there was apparently there was a notification somewhere amongst the hundreds of other notifications about Polish airspace that it will be closed around Warsaw from 10 p.m. tonight until midnight Monday, which I didn't notice. So I happily flew in, and now I can't fly out until Tuesday, which means I'm going to spend
longer time with us.
Extended weekend in the beautiful Warsaw.
That's great.
On summer weekends. So there weren't things.
So the 3 things you would like to do in 3 years are?
In 3 years, I want to, first of all, I want to be happy to be able to perform and provide for everything I do. So that's the priority.
So maintain what you have.
I need to take care of
the family,
the capital, which is the body and mind. That's the most important thing. The second is I want to see my business growing. That's for sure. I want to have fun doing that, and I want my family to have fun with me doing that. So being successful on one front doesn't cost you some sacrifices or too many sacrifices on the other. So that's another one, and the third is in 3 years from now, my elder son will hopefully have a driver's license, so I can come and visit you, and we can have some beers, and then he can drive home.
Be driven, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
That will be a beautiful experience.
That would be fun. What did you learn in the last 12 months? You had quite an eventful year. Your startup was in the second year. You acquired another startup. You got a driving license and so on. But if you would look back, what was the main thing that you learned, or the most significant thing that you learned in the last 12 months?
I learned that being busy doesn't mean you're actually productive.
Wow.
It was not clear enough to me.
Can you explain that?
That was, as we discussed earlier, about this, the level of working that I'm at the moment, when I can pace and plan myself much better than I could ever before. And I realized that a lot of time in the past, coming from my school years, I was just indulging in activities, whereas where I'm now, the one thing that matters is the success, is the result, the end result, and that became much more clear to me in the last 9 months, maybe.
Okay. And you using it now?
I see myself relearning it almost
Okay.
every day.
Okay.
So, talking about being smashed in the face by reality.
Okay.
But that's something that's much clearer to me now than it was before.
A book which?
A book which I come back to, and I don't always understand, but it makes me think.
Okay.
Is there is it's actually a selection of Stoicist philosophy by Seneca.
Okay.
And
I know the book.
and this stuff is like
2,000
years old, and this guy could have written it like yesterday. And that's really fascinating.
And the second one I would recommend is Letters of Marcus Aurelius.
All right.
That's also a very good one. So they both are kind of written.
I've heard about them, but haven't got to them.
Yeah, perfect.
But it's like I really like these like short articles, like 2 pages, like one of those letters. It was like Seneca writing to a fictitious friend, and I I have to reread it like 3 times and then think about it for the rest of the week. It's like so dense for me.
That's the introvert part of you.
Probably.
Okay. Pavol, what would you like for our guests, the listeners and viewers of our channel, to remember from this conversation?
Everyone should take out whatever fits them and suits them. If a few things that I shared were inspirational, then it was great. But if I could maybe say a motto or something that I offer to the public to think about, being an introvert, is at the end of the day, oftentimes if you don't do it, it won't happen. So just think about it. What all things are not happening because you're not doing them, because you're waiting for somebody to make a decision for you, or
for the world to take a turn, yeah.
Or basically, just expecting them to fall from the sky. So own it and do something about it, and let's see how it works out.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. As every Thursday, I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to smash that like button, and we invite you next week at 4 o'clock on Thursday to this channel. The next program will be in Polish, and I hope you did enjoy it.